Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So my name is Kalina Kwan. I'm the Executive Director of BCACG, and thank you for joining us today. So today I'm very happy to have Amy Bond and Todd Abercrombie with us. You cannot see Todd at the moment, but Amy is the Outreach and Policy Manager of the BC Community Gaming Branch, and Todd is the Director of the Community Gaming Grant. So Amy will be starting us off with the presentation. With that, I'm going to pass this on to Amy.
Great, thank you, Kalina. I am going to share my screen now. So we're talking today about the Capital Project Grants webinar, and I'll just go through slide by slide. Oh, there we go. So a little bit of an overview of what we'll be talking about today is showing here what's new in the guidelines this year, do an overview of the program, go over the different parts of eligibility, how the applications are scored, how you can spend the money, and how to apply for it, and then some other follow-up resources. Before we go into the presentation, I did want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you today from the lands of the Lekwungen people, who are known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations, in what many people refer to as Victoria, BC today. So I thank the Lekwungen people for their stewardship of this land, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to live and work here and to connect with my community and participate in acts of ongoing reconciliation. Just recognizing that there is territories from more than 200 First Nations across BC on the work that we all do. Okay, so what is new for 2024? 2024 Capital Project Grant updates include clarifications to existing criteria and some minor changes to the scoring section. So this year we have provided greater clarity as to what is considered mandatory assessment criteria. Applicants must meet mandatory criteria to move forward to having their application scored. So this includes meeting the organization eligibility criteria, having a project budget between $20,000 and $1.25 million, and providing third-party quotes that support the costs in the project budget, among some other criteria. Scoring has also been updated to align with some of these changes. That includes increasing the project feasibility score from 25% to 35% of the overall total, and the financial consideration sections from 45% to 35%. A little bit of an overview. So 2024 will be our 8th year offering the program. The objective of Capital Project Grant is to enable not-for-profit organizations to complete capital projects that provide significant benefit in their communities. The program is specifically for capital projects with a cost between $20,000 and $1.25 million. We are strict on this. So we're looking for projects that are within the scope of the average not-for-profit organization, not really huge multi-year projects. And then anything under $20,000 can be requested on your regular programming grant. PACs are eligible to apply. The grant is open to all of the same 6 sectors as the main programming grants. The organizational eligibility is the same as for our other grants as well. Between 20 and 50% of the total cost of a project might be funded, and that percentage depends on the cost of the project and the total grant amount. So the maximum funding we can provide is $250,000. So that would be the 20% on a $1.25 million project. Matching funds from the applicants are required, and these must be on hand at the time of application. A bona fide commitment is acceptable, like a letter of stating that you will have funding, but funding in hand is a stronger case for the application. The successful applicants will receive what they've requested, assuming these other requirements are met, and the assessment is competitive. So applicants are encouraged to put forward their strongest application. So the intake period for 2024 is June 17th to August 15th. You can only apply for submit one application per year for a capital project, and for one project only. So not for phases or cascading projects. You can apply for the capital project program and your regular grant for your programming as well. There should only be one lead in an application. You can get the support of other organizations, but one organization has to assume the overall responsibility for the project, and that should be clear in the application. Like our regular guidelines, the Capital Project Program has its own sector guide, and the 2024 guidelines have been published on our website. Applicants should make the strongest case possible in each of the sections of your application, mindful that other applicants are also making their strongest cases. So you want to ensure you provide complete information and documentation. Incomplete, inaccurate, or missing documents will significantly weaken your application. The branch does not have the ability to contact applicants for further clarification or request missing information during the assessment period. It's part of the competitive nature, and late applications won't be accepted. So grants will be awarded near the end of the calendar year. We have to go through all of the applications and score them before any decisions are made. So the Capital Project Grant Guidelines is the main policy document, and it will provide you with all of the eligibility criteria that we review alongside your application. It also provides information on what documents you need, how the application is assessed and scored. The 2024 guidelines have all the new changes reflected for the year, as well as all the information for the program. Do strongly encourage all applicants to read through these in advance of preparing for and submitting your application. All right, so what types of organizations are eligible? Similar to our regular programming grants, you must be a not-for-profit organization operating primarily for community benefit, deliver or support programs within community gaming grant 6 sectors, having an open membership with a volunteer board that's democratically elected. Those elected board members, at least 2/3, have to be in BC, and they're not paid for their board role. Organizations that will not be eligible for the grant are for-profit organizations, member-funded, political party, political action group, etc. Any level of government or program of government that includes federal, provincial, regional, municipal, First Nation, or other local governments, or, as I said, branches or facilities of those. So even things like a municipally operated library or a museum, provincial healthcare institution, that kind of thing. And schools, also religious institutions. So I'll just go over a little bit of those. So for religious institutions, many do operate as nonprofits in the sense they're not generating a profit, and they operate for community benefit. They're generally not eligible by default because they don't meet the criteria of having that board of directors that's democratically elected with the open membership in the same way other nonprofits do. However, there are many nonprofit organizations that are affiliated with a religious institution that are eligible if they meet our requirements. So it's typically just the institutions themselves that are not. And I'll just quickly speak to member-funded societies. A lot of people ask, does this mean do we get annual fees from our members? That is not what it means. Member-funded society is a legal term under the Societies Act. So member-funded societies exist primarily for the benefit of their members, and they state in their constitution that it's a member-funded society. On liquidation or dissolution, a member-funded society can distribute its money and property to members. So for that reason, they're not eligible for most government grants, including this. Okay, so the documents that we look at to determine if an applicant is eligible or not: constitution and bylaws. So those are required. The board of directors list, and we're looking for the addresses on those to see that 2/3 are in BC, and minutes from the most recent AGM or whatever meeting you had your last election of the board at. And that's to demonstrate that election process. Right, projects. What kind of projects do we fund? So there is eligibility criteria in here. There's 4 different sort of sets of projects that are funded. Applicants can apply for only one of these categories. So an organization could apply for building restoration, but couldn't also apply for a fleet of vehicles. You've got to sort of pick one of these categories that you want to do. So facilities are things like construction of a new facility, renovation, maintenance of existing facilities, maybe land purchase or development. Community infrastructure is development of public amenities that improve the residents' quality of life. So typically outdoor things like playgrounds, outdoor structures, some kind of community space like a skate park, walking trail, public wharf. We've even done ecosystem restoration. Most of those are on public land. I'll just say most of the time, not always, but they are typically things that are out and accessible for everyone. An acquisition is purchase of a fixed capital asset that's owned by the nonprofit organization applying and being used for typically some kind of program delivery. So things like vehicles, computer or office technical equipment, sports equipment, boats, things like that. So facilities and community infrastructure, just go over some of the criteria that's in these. So we talk about being accessible to the open. We do understand some facilities can't be completely open to the public, particularly if they're meant to serve a certain segment of the population. So for example, daycare, recovery house, transition housing. So what we mean is that it's reasonably open to anyone who would have an interest in utilizing the completed project. It's not just for a closed membership of people. So facilities and infrastructure should be on land that's owned by an eligible organization, leased to them on a long-term basis, so 10 or more years, or on public land. Acquisitions have slightly different criteria due to the nature of the project. So it should be necessary for the delivery of a program or service. It should be purchased by the eligible organization for community benefit. It is for long-term use, and it must fully belong to the eligible organization that's applying. So, for example, a volunteer firefighting organization might apply for a new truck. That society, that volunteer firefighting society, has to own the truck. They can't buy the truck and then it's owned by the city. That's just one example. And then our repatriation projects. So again, not-for-profit organizations can apply to either receive or send cultural belongings. The research and negotiations determining ownership of the items must be completed prior to that. So a not-for-profit that's applying for this may be applying to receive a belonging or working alongside an organization on behalf of to receive, or applying to send, like maybe a museum has some artifacts they want to send back to their community. If they're working on behalf of another party involved, a letter of support from that party is also required. Financial eligibility. So we'll get into this now. This is a big part, 35%. So organizations have to have a separate gaming account. So you need a void check attached to your application, have a separate bank account set up to receive the grant funds. Matching funds, as we mentioned earlier, applicant must have matching funds required for the project completion. So those matching funds must equal or exceed the level of funding that's being requested. You should show if you have any unrestricted funds that are designated, or show if they are restricted that are on your books. And if you have previously applied for grants, you need to have your gaming account sum reports up to date and be in good standing. So the documents that we'll look at is the organization's financial statements, including a revenue and expense statement for the most previous fiscal year. So the latest one that has completed, a balance sheet for that same period, an organization budget for the current fiscal year, and a project budget as well. Any accompanying notes that go along with those financial statements, letting us know what might be restricted or deferred is also good if applicable. So for the assessment and scoring section, I'll go through this here and let you know how these are scored. So to start through, applicants have to meet the mandatory criteria to have it scored. So that's what we just went over here. Your organization is eligible to receive a grant. The project fits into that eligible categories, and the amount, the value of it fits in between 20,000 and 1.25 million. Financial eligibility, so you're up to date with your reporting with us and you've provided the necessary financial documents to be assessed. So you meet that, then the projects themselves are scored against the assessment criteria. And after that scoring is done, additional considerations may be applied. So things like making sure there's a fair distribution across all of the 6 sectors, making sure there's distribution across all of the regions in the province, and ensuring that we've funded some Indigenous projects as well. So down to the scoring here. So community benefit is worth 20% of the overall score. So capital project program is designed to support community identified needs and priorities. The focus is on people, their needs, development, and their involvement with the community. Community benefit section requires details about the number of people that are likely to benefit and how they will benefit from the project. You can include evidence of community support from your project and describe the needs or the gaps the project will address. You can include information such as the following as evidence for your project and describe those needs. So what is the broader problem or need in the community that is being addressed? Maybe it's an aging facility that's unsafe. There's no other service of its type within a 45-minute drive. There's a current gap in service that the proposed equipment purchase would enable. Maybe there are no fire trucks in your community or for a 3-hour drive. You can describe the number and populations of people who will directly benefit from the project in the year. For example, over 150 newcomers and refugees in the Cowichan Valley, 50 Indigenous youth ages 12 to 18, all community members interested in salmon restoration, or 100 socially isolated adults over the age of 65 in the Vanderhoof area. If applicable, you can include details, numbers, or statistics to substantiate the community benefit. So like provide a wait list numbers demonstrating existing facility has more users than it can accommodate. Where possible, quantify the impact this project would have on the community if complete. So approximate number of individual visits to a facility annually or kilometers of trail that are being maintained. Inclusiveness and accessibility is worth 5%. So applications are scored on not just how many people will benefit, but ensuring it's open and inclusive to all who may be interested. So we're looking to see how it is accessible, how people in the community of all ages, abilities, sexual orientations, genders, ethnicities, cultural backgrounds, religions, and languages can access this. Does it serve underrepresented communities? Right, the next sort of section of the assessment criteria is the project feasibility, which is worth 30%. We do want to see there's a sound plan in place to ensure the project starts after funding is provided and that it's completed on time. Information we're looking for in this section covers the project timeline, that risks have been considered and a risk management plan is in place. Any appropriate approvals and permits have been obtained or at least applied for, and that the ongoing operation of the project is viable. For successful applicants, funding must be spent within 36 months of receipt. The project timeline should show how the project can be started within 12 months of receiving the funds and completed within that 3 years. Financial considerations. So not only do we want to see a viable plan for the execution of the project, we do want to see solid numbers on the financial aspect. So here we would assess the financial feasibility of the project, how grant funds will be used toward eligible expenses, and that matching funds are in place. So we're looking at your financial statements and budgets, project budget, planned use of grant funds, and the matching funds. Do you have enough money? If you're requesting 20%, do you have the other 80% lined up already? And then the last piece of scoring criteria is for environmental efficiency. So this covers how the project includes climate action or energy efficient features that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, lower the applicant's long-term operational expenses, such as heating and cooling costs, or improve the use of the organization's human or technological resources, so reduced resource consumption. So this might not be applicable to all projects. Applicants can note when this is not applicable and why, or really highlight everything that you're doing to address climate change. So you have applied and you got the letter in late December saying that you've been funded. How can you spend the grant funds? So grant funds must be used to cover costs directly related to and necessary for the successful implementation of the approved project. Eligible expenses include like project-related fees paid to professionals, technical personnel, consultants, contractors, project materials, so whether that's lumber, building supplies, kitchen equipment, whatever your project is there, transportation or shipping costs for acquisitions or repatriation projects, any licenses, permits, or insurance that's required, and any other direct necessary cost incurred in the implementation. All right, so funding. Organizations must have that separate bank account for receiving, holding, and dispersing gaming funds. I think I mentioned that a little earlier. Projects must start within 12 months of receiving the grant, and the grant funds must be spent within 36 months of receipt. So all eligible expenses should be paid directly from that designated gaming account whenever possible. If needed, funds may be transferred from the gaming to the general account to reimburse for eligible project expenses that have already been paid out. Payments can be made through check or board-approved EFT transfer. All organizations that receive community gaming grants or have previously received a grant and still have money in their gaming account have to submit a gaming account summary report, or a GASR. Organizations must also complete a capital project grant supplement if they get this capital project funding. It's just showing, designating the capital funding going out separate from that money that you might receive for your programs. So the GASR and the capital project supplement together report on all spending out of the gaming account during your fiscal year. The details, gaming account, we're looking for the balance at the beginning of the year, how many grants, what grants amounts were received, what funds were dispersed, and then the balance at the end. The GASR also requests a description of how the community benefited from the programs or services supported by community gaming grants, and the capital project grant supplement is an attachment to this GASR that just includes expenditures related to your capital project grant. So it just isolates it so we can see what is related to that project versus what is your annual spending. That capital project supplement should include a list of all project-related disbursements or reimbursements made from the gaming account. And those expenses should be consistent or comparable to what was outlined in the approved grant application. And these reports are due within 90 days of your organization's fiscal year end. So it's not related to when you got the money, it's related to your fiscal year end. And I'll just go through and show you some examples of what these look like. We do have, so there's blank copies of these on our website. We also have samples, like completed samples like this, and tutorials, or you can pick up a phone and ask if you need any help getting through. But I like to say they're not really that difficult to fill out. If you read the fine print there, a lot of the boxes are not necessary. So that shows the sign-off page and the section for community benefit right down there. And then I'll show you the capital project supplement here. So again, just a place to put your file number and the year you're reporting on. And it's just a separate schedule, so you can list those payments separately. So once you have completed your project, we'll ask for a project completion report. We ask that you email it to the Community Gaming Grants branch, and it should include a description of the completed project and how it's benefiting the community, a breakdown of the total project expenses, and like a couple of photos are great too. You can send that post-completion report to our general email address. We may reach out back again if you've provided some great photos for high resolution and ask if we can use them to publicize the outcomes of the program. And that could be in our news releases or in our annual report, or possibly even in future guidelines. So we'll talk a bit about applying for the grant. This is an online application through the Gaming Online Service. So you'll go to our website here, and I'll just walk through a little bit here to make sure new applicants don't get lost. Once you're on our website, you want to look on the left side where it says Online Service. And then there's a button that says Launch Online Service right there. That will take you to this page. I'll just direct your attention back over to that left-hand column under Apply Online. All of these are links to the specific application. So you want to select the capital project grants. Once you click that link, it will launch you into the application. It'll ask for your file number if you've applied for grants before, or you can enter your organization name and open a new file if you haven't applied before. New applicants can create their own file this year, so that is a change from previous years. Just stay away from the center part when you get here. You could scroll down this middle part of the site There'll be lots of other links that will distract you. Just remember, it's on the left-hand side there. Try to get to the next slide here. So applying for the grant, as I mentioned, the intake just opened on June 17th. It will remain open until August 15th, and we'll have notifications out by the end of the calendar year, December 31st. It's only online applications. Paper applications are not accepted. I have to attach all of your documents to the application, so you can't send it later by mail or email. What you should have on hand, if you're a new applicant, setting up a file is your organization's legal name. So how it appears on your constitution or certificate of incorporation, the organization's address, a BC society number if applicable, your operating start date, and your fiscal year end. You'll need at least that to create a new file. You can also get assistance at Service BC locations across the province. So if you need help to scan in any documents, Service BC staff can scan and email those documents to you. Or if you don't have a computer to work on, you can utilize the citizen access terminals to complete an online application. Service BC staff they can provide assistance with wayfinding, help you find the resources, but they can't provide any advice for the application. Always say, review the sector guide and the resources on our website for any valuable tips ahead of time. Look at the frequently asked questions. The application tutorial will show you a screen-by-screen, it's screenshots basically of the online application. So if you want a preview, you're looking for the capital project application tutorial. There's also sample financial statements. Tips and advice. So again, read the program guidelines, review the pre-application checklist that's in the sector guide, review any resources on our websites, save all of your documents that you need ahead of time. So you can upload Word, PDF, Excel, or JPEG documents to the online system. I always tell people put them all in a folder on your desktop so it's easy to navigate to them while you're in the application. And feel free to call or email the branch if you have any questions as it comes up. There is someone on phones every day, and we're pretty good at responding to emails within like 1 to 2 business days. And again, if you are a previous applicant, ensure that any of your previous reporting is up to date. I'm just about done. I'll share some resources here. So Community Gaming Grants branch, our website is up there at gov.bc.ca/gaminggrants. General questions can go into the email communitygaminggrants@gov.bc.ca. There's our phone number here, 250-356-1081. You can also call Service BC at their 1-800 number and ask to be transferred. Email to myself and policy analyst here at CGG Outreach. I'll just also highlight here Kalina's wonderful group with the BC Association for Charitable Gaming, who represent charities and community groups and promote access to gaming revenues, and their website and email up there as well. Working with the BCACG, there's also community charitable gaming associations across the province. So again, these resources are available download in the handout section of the meeting. If you wanted to grab any of these websites here, but we have CCGAs in the Northeast, the Northern Interior, Fraser Valley, here on the island, and in the Okanagan there as well. They should be able to give you a hand or answer any questions. And that is all I have. I'll open it up for questions now and just say thank you very much for coming.